Hi all, so it's Lauren Hollows. I wanted to just put out a couple of videos which you guys will see over the next week or two based on questions, lots of questions that I've been receiving from industry. I'm sorry if I haven't responded to you. I, like everybody else, am adapting to the COVID lifestyle, so we've got things mostly under control now. So So I wanted to go over a couple of things. I've got a couple of videos that are going to come out. There's 2 or 3 that are going to be focusing on parenting schedules for those of you that are parenting young kids at home and working and cleaning and doing all of the things that as parents and workers we do. So there's a couple on that. There's a few on how we're utilizing, or the technologies that I'm working, my RTOs are working with, to adapt to online training, blender training, things like that. And then there's a couple for supporting your staff in relation to COVID. So this is going to be a first kind of overview one. If you've got any specific questions that you would like to have answered, please feel free to send them through and I will try and address them as best I can. So just really quickly, this one is just going to focus on kind of an overview of what the RTOs I'm working with are doing in order to, adapt during the COVID sort of changes. So I've got a couple of RTOs, most of them are government funded. So that's probably been one of the biggest challenges. And then, my big one does also a lot. Well, actually, the kind of 2 or 3 big ones that I work with, we do a lot of placements as well. And so the placements has been a real challenge. So first of all, we are primarily, we are still doing some face-to-face training. That is generally for students who have been deemed as high risk. So we've got a few students that are, I guess, in high risk scenarios at home. They've been referred through places like the Department of Juvenile Justice and the Department of Education, Department of Child Protection. So we've made a decision to keep our campuses open to them. We've spaced out the campus so that it adapts to all of the social distancing requirements. We've put all of our staff through COVID training on what the new protocols are and things like that. So And look, the younger students, I'm talking 14 to 19 years old, are adapting okay to this. It is taking a lot of following up on part of the staff, but that's being managed. So that's the decision that most of my RTOs have made, is that they are staying open for a relatively small cohort, and then the majority moving online where we can. So we obviously utilize Accelerate platforms in the 5 or 6 RTOs that I work with. All of them utilize Accelerate now. Very glad we made that decision. And we have got a 3-phase approach to how we go about moving our assessments more online. So first, it's like an online delivery portal. The second stage is with more interactive assessments and building small scale practical assessments where they can be delivered in line with training package requirements, but in a virtual format. And then the last stage will be getting them into practical workshops where, for example, it utilizes specific equipment that can only be utilized or done in the workplace or in a practical face-to-face scenario. So that's sort of how a lot of that side of things has been structured. We are utilizing Zoom. I'm aware that several high schools and the Department of Education in a few of the states has raised some concerns or issues. Zoom has obviously put in place some additional risk controls. So if you are working as a vet and schools provider, you might get some pushback if you're using Zoom as your primary portal. Despite some of the issues with Zoom, we're pushing ahead. We've just put additional protocols in place for how we go about hosting the meetings, making sure that we're utilizing passwords, being very careful on how we disseminate and things like that for, in order to manage Zoom bombing. And The Zoom bombing has actually occurred across multiple platforms, including WebEx, Cisco, Facebook, all sorts of things. So look, just be aware and make sure it's probably a good thing to have a process in place. We're also developing a code of conduct for online training in relation to what content is appropriate to share, the level of detail. Now, that's going to really depend on who your cohort is. Again, this tends to be more of a younger cohort situation. If you're dealing with a younger cohort, you need to be more protective of what they're able to see, and also helping them be just, safety aware of what is appropriate for them to be sharing as well. So we are sticking with Zoom. I have found that Zoom is definitely the most reliable. I'm using a range of platforms, both professionally and personally at the moment. I use House Party personally. We use Facebook, FaceTime in my household too. I know that my son's school is using Teams. All of the platforms have got different challenges. I have definitely found that Zoom is by far the most stable in relationship to always knowing that you've got audio, always having video and share screen ability, and also not having issues with echoes, when you have to utilize or project to a larger screen. So I have found that Zoom's been really, really fantastic for that, and their pricing structure has been really reasonable. So combination of virtual classes and a little bit of face-to-face classes. Obviously everyone's got to make their own decision in relation to that. However, that's the decision that we've made in relation to balancing the physical welfare of the students and the mental welfare of the students. And that's something that you're all going to have to make your own decisions on. But I do think it needs to be a factor when you're making that decision. So if you're dealing in an industry where there are concerns, about whether or not your students are safe at home, whether it's the only meal they're getting during the day, these are some of the things that need to be taken into consideration. And certainly it is being taken into consideration by a large majority of schools. But, having a process in place for making that determination of who is going to stay at the school, what processes, if you are going to have people coming into your schools, and how you're going to make sure that you can still maintain all of those governmental requirements in relationship to the 4 square meters per person, the social distancing, good access to cleaning procedures, good access to all of that sort of stuff. There is free online training as well available for people. It is still very hard to get into. I know I did it about 2-3 weeks ago, and the only time I could do it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. But I did go and check the other night, and it was still very busy. But if you Google health COVID training, there is some coming up. There's a little bit more popping up, and I know that I've just finished writing a more in-depth course on it as well, which will be coming out shortly too. But making sure that you've got a process in place for making sure your staff, your students are all aware of what the policies and procedures are, how you've made a determination to stay open or closed or otherwise, is really, really important during this time. So I'm coming up on 10 minutes nearly already. So what I'll do within the next one is we will talk a little bit about managing government funding contracts, completions and commencements under a COVID scenario. As I said, please feel free to email through any questions that you've got. I'm really sorry if I haven't gotten back to you yet. You'll understand why when I do my parenting in a pandemic podcast. I hope that you're all well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're taking care of your staff. I hope you're taking care of your students. Be well, be safe, and I will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.